Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If you're new, we're the Night Homestead, and we have been making videos about us starting our homestead journey and the projects that we're doing for the first time, and we're just taking you along with us as we learn as we go. Today's video is our first time planting corn. This is really an experiment this year. We'll kind of see what we need to improve on next year. In this video, we just kind of took you along step by step of what we're doing. We know there are several different ways to plant corn, but this is just what we're doing, so enjoy the video.
Guys, today's the day we're going to be planting some corn. If you can see this plot here behind me, this is a 25 by 50 plot I tilled up to plant with corn. I'm going to be planting G90 corn in it just because I had it left over, but I did buy some, I think it's called Sweet Candy Mountain heirloom corn. I don't know if I'm going to plant that yet. I was really wanting to plant it separate just because we're wanting to go straight heirloom here eventually, but I didn't want to waste the G90. I mean, it's a excellent eating corn, so why not go ahead and plant it and get our harvest off of it. The only deal is corn is extremely prone to cross-pollination. That's just the way it is. It's wind pollinated, so it's kind of hard to keep your corn varieties separate. So I'm just gonna try to plant straight G90 in here, and if I do have some extra, we'll plant the heirloom, and then next year I'll just go ahead and buy all heirloom so we can start out with that. Now in this plot, we don't have a ton of organic matter, and I don't have access to it right now, so we are going to use 13 synthetic fertilizers just because it's readily available at this time. They're calling for shortages for fertilizers, so I would keep that in mind if you are still planning on planting your garden. They are calling for a extreme shortage in fertilizer, synthetic fertilizers. So eventually on our homestead, we want to go all organic and create our own fertilizer here, but this year we're just not on the ball yet. So I'm going to go ahead and use a 13 fertilizer for our corn because they are extremely heavy feeders. That means it takes a lot of nutrients out of the ground. Your NPK, which is nitrogen, potassium, and whatever that last one is, can't think of it. But anyway, so they really need fertilizer. If not, your corn's not going to do very good. It's going to suck up whatever nutrients is in your soil quick. It's going to take all of it out. So I'm just going to come through here. Our rows will be 3 foot apart due to the nature of corn. Because it is a wind pollinated crop, it needs to be fairly close together, so when the pollen heads come out on the top, the wind can blow it into the next row and pollinate everything, because that's the only way it does it. Unless you come through and did all that. I ain't doing none of that. It's too much work. So we're going to try to plant these fairly close together and get a good crop of corn. Now this will be my first time growing corn successfully, hopefully. We did plant it down at our old garden just one time, and I had it in too much shade, and it only got up about a foot tall, and then it started tasseling out, and it just didn't end up well. I ended up just tilling it in because it wasn't going anywhere. Hopefully this plot does a lot better for us. All the research I've done, primarily you want to plant corn in a block style planting, just because the way it's wind pollinated, and it just results in better pollination. If you're having problems with pollination, you're not going to get a good kernel set on your ears, which means you will have some corn kernels show up on your cobs, but there's just not that many. You'll see it'll be either a real short cob with not many kernels, or a full-length cob, and it'll just be sparse, and it really is a waste of growing if you don't have it produce well, because we want to eat it. We don't want to just grow it to look at it. I'm going to go through here. I got some, if you can see it right over there, we got some 3/4 inch square stock. I'm just going to come through here and go every 3 foot and pound those in the ground, and then I'll go on the other side and do that too, so my rows are good and straight. I'll run a string across those, then I can come through. I'm going to take a cup of fertilizer and just sprinkle it down that row, and then I will take the Earthway push along garden cedar and plant our corn on those rows, and then all we got to do is wait for it to come up. All right, I want to come back and say I don't think we're going to do a 3-foot space, and I got to look at, I think I want to move them a little bit closer, so I'm going to move them to a 24-inch row space. All right, I ended up with 17 50-foot rows. You hear Jed's talking back there. Now what I'm gonna do is take some, what we call around here, some trot line string. I'm gonna tie around the pole on this side and run it over to the pole on the other side. And then I will come back and spread out my fertilizer along that string. And then I'll come back and plant on it, and then we'll move the string to the next one, so I'm not using as much string. I think that'll make it a little easier on us. All right, here's my handy dandy trot line string. It's just some braided nylon string. I'm gonna tie it on this post right here and then walk on down to that post right there. There's Kelsey, barefoot in the garden. Redneck right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and start that now. All right, here's our 50-pound bag, a triple 13. This is just an all-purpose fertilizer. We bought this at the Wally World. Folgers can here. Fill it up full of this fertilizer. All right, here's what your fertilizer looks like. It's just a pelletized type deal. All right, I'm just gonna take this and sprinkle it along our row, and then I'll come back with a garden rake and just kind of mix it in the soil, and then we'll come back and plant over the top of it. All right, while Kelsey's fetching that rake, we're going to be using the sweet corn plate for the Earthway planter. This one ought to work pretty good. Like I said, this is my first time planting corn this way and using the Earthway planter to plant the corn. Last time I just popped holes and dropped it in the old-fashioned way. So you want me to rake her or you want to plant? Well, let me get this tray put in and Kelsey, the hopper loaded up, and then I'm gonna go through there and rake that fertilizer in, and then Kelsey will come back and plant on top of it. All right, here's our corn, just some coated G90 corn. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the hopper, and then Kelsey's gonna run through with a planter and plant it. I forgot to mention the planting depth on this corn is 1 inch. That's what I got the Earthway planter set to. Kelsey's doing a good job, ain't she?
First row in, we've already spilled the corn. I don't know if you can see Jake. Anyways, I was going to remind y'all, I don't know if y'all watched our last video on planting the other garden, but one thing that is very important, don't forget when you're planting your garden, to pray over your garden. It's a great time. You're going over each row. It's somewhat slow. It's a great time to just stop, talk to the Lord. I ask him to bless our garden. Specifically, I'm asking him to bless our corn crop, that we get a good harvest this year. And that's just something to note. You know, we thank him so much for giving us this land and giving us the tools to be able to plant the garden. And so we just ask that he'll bless our efforts and that we'll have a good harvest this year. So I was just gonna say all that when you're planting your garden and move to pray over it.
All right, we got all 17 rows planted. I did have to mix the corn there at the end just because we were running low on the G90, so I'll put in some of the, I think it's Sweet Candy Mountain corn. It's an heirloom, but we're not going to be saving the seed off of this more than likely, so not going to worry about it. We're just going to eat it all anyways. We should be back with y'all in a few days when it starts sprouting. We'll show y'all a little bit about what's going on then. All right, guys, a little update on our corn. We planted it about 2 weeks ago, and we didn't have that good of a germination rate. We probably only had, by looking at it, maybe about 50% germination rate. I did come back and dig around in the rows where we planted, and it looked like a lot of it went bad or rotted, which I don't particularly know why it did that, because we haven't had a whole lot of water or rain, because we didn't water them in when we planted. We were just waiting on the next rainstorm, and the ground really wasn't that wet, so I don't know exactly what would have caused that other than them being a little too old to germinate, which they were. I bought them 2 years ago, and who knows how old they were, you know, when I bought them. So we do know next year we're going to buy good fresh seed when we do plant next year. The planter, I don't think that was the problem with it, but it did overplant in a couple spots, so we're going to have to come in and thin out about 8 to 12 inches in between each plant. Some spots it has them planted about 10 to an inch.
Like
in some
of them
spots
are like this, they're like 5 in this short of space. We'll show y'all a picture.
So I'm gonna have to come in and thin some of those out. Maybe I can transplant those into some bare spots where we have those, and then I can also come in and reseed in some spots. I already come back and reseeded about 2.5 rows last week, because I wasn't sure on what was still going to come up.
We planted the rows 2 foot apart, so we're going to see next year we might do 3 foot apart. Most people do 3 foot. We kind of just did our own thing and did 2 feet. So if you're thinking that, but after watching that video, just know it's our first time. We're just going to see how we like it. It'll be kind of thick, but we're just trying to fit as much corn as possible in this plot.
Well, my thinking was the closer I plant them together, the less I gotta weed it, because when they get taller they'll shade it out. That's the plan. Hopefully the weeds don't, you know, get out of control and then I can't get in there and weed it because I got the rows too close together. But that's the goal now. The rows aren't the straightest, but that's no big deal. The guy tying the strings wasn't the best, I guess. You go, Mama.
Okay.
Thank y'all so much for watching our video today. We do ask that you please like, share, and subscribe our videos, and also hit that bell notification so every time our videos come out, you'll get a notification on your phone and you can go watch it right away.
See y'all in the next video.
Bye.
Bye.